This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets.
U.S. crude oil inventories fell last week as refiners continued to ramp up production, while gasoline and distillate stockpiles also dropped, the Energy Information Administration said on Wednesday. Crude inventories fell by 3.3 million barrels to 433.6 million barrels in the week ended March 21, the EIA said, compared with analysts' expectations in a Reuters poll for a 956,000-barrel draw. Refinery crude runs rose by 87,000 barrels per day, while refinery utilization rates inched up by 0.1 percentage point to 87% of total capacity, increasing for a third week in a row as refiners exit seasonal maintenance.
Oil prices edged lower on Thursday as markets weighed the impact of U.S. President Donald Trump's auto tariffs at a time when concerns swirled about global supply due to U.S. tariff threats on buyers of Venezuelan oil and sanctions on Iran's oil clients. Brent crude futures fell 22 cents, or 0.3%, to $73.57 a barrel by 0733 GMT. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures slipped 23 cents, or 0.3%, to $69.42. Both benchmarks were initially up in early Asian trade. On Wednesday, oil prices rose by around 1% on government data showing U.S. crude oil and fuel inventories fell last week, and on the U.S. threat of tariffs on nations buying Venezuelan crude.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
The sustainable aviation fuel, SAF, industry is falling short of its 2030 targets with production not ramping up quickly enough, Boston Consulting Group, BCG, found in a report published on Thursday. European airlines are this year expected to meet a mandate of 2% SAF use in their jet fuel, with that set to rise to 6% by 2030. But many have lamented the high cost of the fuel, which is typically 3 to 5 times more expensive than traditional jet fuel. The report found that airlines and airports are investing only 1% to 3% of revenue or budget allocation to SAF, with high production costs and fuel prices remaining the major challenges to adoption.
Ukraine and Russia accused one another on Wednesday of flouting a truce on energy strikes brokered by the United States, and the European Union said it would not meet conditions set by Russia for a planned ceasefire in the Black Sea. The United States announced separate agreements with Ukraine and Russia on Tuesday to pause their strikes in the Black Sea and against each other's energy targets, but the rhetoric from Moscow and Kyiv suggested they remained far apart. Ukraine's President, Volodymyr Zelensky, said the U.S. side told Kyiv the deals were effective as soon as they were announced. But the Kremlin said the Black Sea Agreement would not enter force until a sanctioned Russian state bank was reconnected to the international payment system. Europe said that would not happen until a Russian withdrawal from Ukraine. Next, we have the top news in metal markets. Gold prices rose on Thursday as U.S. auto tariffs ratcheted up global trade tensions ahead of an April 2 deadline for reciprocal tariffs from the world's largest economy. Spot gold was up 0.3% at $3,028.65 an ounce, as of 0650 GMT. U.S. gold futures gained 0.5% to $3,036.10. U.S. President Donald Trump on Wednesday unveiled a 25% tariff on imported cars and light trucks starting next week, widening the global trade war. Investors feared that Trump's reciprocal tariffs, expected to take effect on April 2, might fuel inflation, slow economic growth and heighten trade tensions.
Iron ore futures prices strengthened on Thursday, buoyed by seasonal steel demand in top consumer China, outweighing trade war woes sparked by fresh U.S. tariffs. The most traded May iron ore contract on China's Dalian commodity exchange ended daytime trade 1.28% higher at 789 yuan, $108.63, a metric ton. Earlier in the session, prices hit 792 yuan, their highest since March 17. The benchmark April iron ore on the Singapore exchange was 1.02% higher at $103.40 a ton as of 0704 GMT.
We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector.
Indonesia's palm oil inventory at the end of January rose by 13.98% from the previous month despite a drop in production, as exports fell to a 4-month low. Data from the Indonesian Palm Oil Association, GAPKI, showed on Thursday. Indonesia, the world's biggest palm oil producer, exported 1.96 million metric tons of palm oil products including refined palm oil and oleochemical in January, down from 2.06 million tons shipped in December. Export fell by 30% from a year earlier. The decline in exports was due to lower demand from major buyers including India, China and Pakistan, GAPKI said in a statement.
That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.